Previously on Terradome 3000.
Oh, proximity alert. Oh, Godzilla 1998, how are we doing?
Jackson, my dear boy, how are you doing? It's good to see you.
What are you doing out here?
I'm actually out here looking for you because a little Rodan told me that you were going to do more videos about the Godzilla franchise. And considering that it's the 20th anniversary of my movie this year, I thought it would be a good idea for you...
Yeah?
to celebrate it. And here is your copy of my film and your hat.
Wow, thank you very much, G98.
Well, I must be getting back to my ship. I look forward to watching your honest review.
Okay, well, safe travels.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And I better see that hat on your dome when talking about my film.
Okay. Well, I suppose I better watch this and give you my review, I guess. Wow. Oh, the nostalgia took a hit today, folks. Wow. That is not how I remember it. 20 years, eh? How much that can change a movie. Well, I don't really want to sit here and rip it apart, so because I think enough people do that on the internet. So what I'll do is I'll start with how I remember the movie, and then when I first saw it, then I'll talk about some of the negatives I don't like, and then I'll sum up the rest. But so when I was younger, I first saw this movie when I was about 9 years old. I went to the cinema for a friend's birthday party, and we'd spend that morning playing with these little Godzilla action figures of the baby Godzillas. I remember I had the little red one with the button on the back of its neck that made its mouth move up and down. But we also had this Starburst magazine that had some behind the scenes features and some details on the upcoming movie, and we'd been flicking through that looking at pictures of Godzilla's feet walking through New York and all this sort of stuff. So I was really excited for the movie. We went to the cinema, we saw it, and I came out and I remember us all thinking it was one of the best monster movies we'd ever seen. And in the subsequent years afterwards, before the release of Jurassic Park 3, I would constantly watch Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and then watch Godzilla 1998. Even though I would not put that film on the same level as Jurassic Park or The Lost World now, or even on the same level as Jurassic Park 3. I think that's a better movie than this in the grand scheme of things. But that said, you know, I used to look really fondly upon this movie, and for good reason, because I think there's a lot of things about this movie to love and to appreciate, and also some misconceptions that shine a bad light on this movie, which I'll get onto in a minute. But now, reflecting on it as an adult, I feel like the negatives for me mainly come from the human characters. Maria Pittelow's character, Audrey, is a wet blanket, and she's the first negative thing I think of when I think of this film. She's very unlikable. She doesn't help herself, and I don't know, she's just a bit of an arse, and I really just don't like, you know, the handling of her character. I think she's a fine actress, you know, for the most part, but I just don't think she fit the role, or she could have had a much better role, instead of like a suck-up news anchor that, you know, steals stuff and just sort of whines the entire time, and it just got under my skin. As a kid, I remember not caring about really any of the human characters. I just liked the monster action, but obviously as you're older, you sort of look for you know, what the characters do and all the details there, and I just feel like that they really missed the mark with her in particular. Also, Kevin Dunn's character, Colonel Hicks, the guy who leads the military looking for Godzilla, I think he was miscast. I think he's a fine actor. I love him in Small Soldiers, for one example. But in this, I just did not believe him as a leader of the military, especially one that was looking for a giant monster hidden in New York. And yeah, I really just didn't like his interpretation of a military leader. Yeah, again, as I said, fine actor, but miscast in this instance. Matthew Broderick as Nick Totopoulos. I love Matthew Broderick, but in this movie I never really felt too attached to his character. Not because he played it badly or that the character was badly written or anything. He's alright. I just thought there's not really much substance there to chew over. You know, for this film he's just a bit of a non-character, a bit neutral, as it were. Jean Reno's character, Philippe, is probably my favourite in the movie, and I think there's a lot of people out there who would actually agree with me on that. He's the standout in terms of human characters. He's just so kick-ass and really, really plays it serious throughout most of the movie, and that's what I think lends to the scale of the movie itself, is his seriousness when he talks about Godzilla and stuff. There's that really crucial scene where he's asking the only survivor from the Japanese fishing boat, what did he see? And then he flicks the lighter on. He's like, "What did you see, old man?" It's like he's so good in this movie, and perfectly cast in my opinion. Another negative I can pull up is. Well, really only two more negatives I want to touch upon. One, some of the CGI effects when the baby Godzillas are running around Madison Square Garden is a little bit ropey, and I think they could have shot those a little bit differently to sort of hide some of the floatiness. I mean, a lot of the baby Godzilla's feet look like they're floating above the ground, and granted, at the time on VHS this film looked a lot better than it does on DVD or Blu-ray, but for the late 90s it's still kind of ahead of its game, because they were doing some very ambitious things, so they should, you know, get some credit for that. And my other negative is the amount of references to Jurassic Park. Now, when I was a kid, as I've mentioned, I watched the Jurassic Park Lost World and then Godzilla 1998, and when I was younger that was because of how much this film reminded me of a Jurassic Park movie. Now, looking back on it as an adult, I can see how that is a negative. Later on in the film, when the baby Godzillas are running around, there's a scene where one's opening the door with its head, and it just is almost shot for shot exactly like the raptor coming into the kitchen from Jurassic Park. What I love about this movie more than anything is the character of Godzilla. I think that it was such a great change from what had come before, and this was the first time that Godzilla was coming to America, and I think they really did well with creating their own character that sort of stood out from the rest. Even though it does look a little bit more like a traditional dinosaur, you know, walking horizontally instead of upright like the old Godzillas, and you know, its feet having the three-toed claws and stuff, and the way the character moves and stuff like that, I think they did a really good job. Most of the shots of Godzilla, you know, running around the city I really like, and you know, my favourite scene in the film is when Godzilla first arrives at New York. I think that whole entire sequence, from the moment he rises out where the little old guy's fishing to the moment he walks off after almost killing Animal, that whole sequence there is fantastic, and I wish they did kind of have more daytime scenes with Godzilla in the city, but what can you do? Another thing I really enjoyed about this movie was the score by David Arnold. I thought he did a fantastic job creating such a triumphant feeling. My favourite personal standout moment is when Animal picks a camera up to go film Godzilla for the first time. I used to own a book when I was about 12 or 13 about the making of this movie, and I was surprised when I got it and opened up the pages to learn how many practical effects were used for this film. They actually did use a guy in a suit for a number of scenes, and it was really big, and they had a full-size animatronic that they used. They had baby Godzilla animatronics, and it's somewhat surprising to read up on the internet about how a lot of people shit all over this movie for using CGI, when you watch it, it has so many practical effects in it. And as I said before, I think a lot of the effects in this film have held up for the most part. It's just, as I mentioned before, the babies in Madison Square Garden where it becomes pretty ropey, and some of the scenes, I'll admit, where Godzilla's being chased by the helicopters don't look good today. But for the most part, the effects are really ambitious. They try to do some really sort of new techniques and stuff for the time, and I'll give them 2 thumbs up for that. So one other thing I just want to quickly touch upon is I hear a lot of people say that this 98 Godzilla film is more of a remake of Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, the Ray Harryhausen film, than it ever is a Godzilla film. And that's always interested me because the original Godzilla film was heavily inspired by the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. So technically speaking, that makes this film a pretty damn good remake in that regard of what inspired Godzilla. So anyway, there's my review of Godzilla 98. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're sick and tired of hearing me say Godzilla or Zilla or 1998. I must have said it like a million times in this video. But yeah, so happy birthday. I hope it's a good anniversary, and I hope a lot more people go back and look at the making of this, because yeah, the making of this film is far more interesting than the actual final product. In my eyes, that's similar to Alien Resurrection, you know, in that regard. But actually, there's also one thing I just want to end this video on. There's a leaflet that comes with this DVD, and it has something written on the back that I think's really stupid, so I'll end it on this. The city that never sleeps is about to get a wake-up call.